Hello and welcome to another Battle Games in Middle-earth video. Sorry it's been some time since my last video. As ever, life gets in the way, but I hope you think this one is worth the wait because this is my first ever terrain build on the channel. And as you can see, I've got lots of different little bits and bobs ready to build a brand new Hobbit Hole. If you've seen this advertised already, then you'll know that this is the new Forgeworld Hobby Kit to build yourself a Hobbit Hole ahead of the incoming Scouring of the Shire supplement. So I managed to pick up one of these as a free prize at an event, the Seven Stones event in London. Got it as a prize, a raffle prize, and I thought, well, I'm gonna build something around it. And what better thing to build around a Hobbit Hole kit than a Hobbit Hole? So I got excitedly away. Basically, I started off, as you've seen already, with bits of insulation foam. Now, this is the sort of stuff you can get from hardware shops like Wix in the UK. It's about an inch, and I use about 3 sheets of this, all cut to a certain size. And then, as you can see, I just used the actual door, the Hobbit Hole door, marked out some space for a front garden, and then just chopped away at this, and I based it on I think it's called foam board, this stuff. It's kind of a layer of foam core with 2 plastic sheets holding it together, and that's forming the base of this of this Hobbit Hole. And this will be a fairly big Hobbit Hole. It's not going to have lots of trees. It's not going to be bag end or anything like that, but it is going to be quite a big Hobbit Hole. I just think this is going to be a big line of sight blocking Hobbit Hole. So from there, I glued, I didn't glue it together yet, but what I did, I just held it all down with 3 layers of this and just started kind of chopping away. This is just using a penknife of mine. Make sure you use a cutting board and cut away from you and all that sort of stuff. It's really unpleasant material to work with, actually, this stuff, because it gets staticky and it sticks to your blade and it sticks to your trousers and it just gets all over the place. But it's really easy to work with because you can cut through and you can take big chunks out, look, as you can see there. And it's slowly kind of building towards making a hill. It's not the best way of making hills, I don't think. I think it is probably the best way that I know of how to make hills, but I think the hardest bit is finding an incline that makes sense, and you kind of have to keep just chipping away at it and start at an angle that you think is probably going to be too shallow an angle, so kind of almost start as close as you can to the middle and then cut across at a shallow angle, but that's the way to do it. And I just sort of slowly, as you can see here, just sort of scraping away at this, making kind of a slow incline there for everything. I haven't glued the base in place yet. It's just kind of being used as a guide at the moment to do all this. But as you can see, it's labour-intensive progress. This is all sped up about 8 times faster. So I think in total, you're looking at a good 2-day, 3-day project with gluing and drying time. I think I did this over 3 days, maybe 4 days, including painting. Separate days, but this main kind of structural part of it takes a good few hours, and as I say, makes an absolute mess. You can see here, look at all this stuff, and it just gets all over the floor. There's me hoovering it up, just because it just keeps everything a bit tidy. But yeah, it's worth just keeping an eye on these things, as it's not always the most convenient material to work with, this insulation foam, but my God, is it durable and light and cheap, and you can get massive sheets of it that are about 3 meters wide, 3 by 2 basically, so big that I couldn't even fit it in the car without cutting it in half. So it's really useful stuff. I've made boards out of it before. I've made little display boards and everything, so it's really useful stuff. As you can see there, I sort of kind of press-fitted everything. So you've got these 2 chimney bits, you've got these 2 windows in the kit, and I kind of made sure that there's somewhere where it'll actually fit, and I kind of cut around it and fannied around a bit, kind of making sure that it's actually going to work where it is. And then once I've got all the final shape kind of carved away from this foam board, I started gluing it together. As you can see there, I'm using a hot glue gun. I think this is kind of the equivalent of a kid's glue gun. It's actually really, really useful. I got it as part of an army set that I bought off someone, and it's proven really very useful. Certainly for this resin and this foam, it's probably the best thing. I've used it for making trees and stuff in the past as well. So it's actually really good. I'd recommend it because superglue won't work. PVA glue just takes ages to dry if you're gluing foam together, so it's just a bit of a pain. So here, as you can see, I've glued everything together, and I'm sort of carving into the foam board on the front, just kind of drawing some steps, and you can see I can sort of do the outline of this little path, and then I'm sort of scoring along the lines of these bricks, just to get a bit of indentation between the things. This is exactly what I'm doing there with that little pen thing there, with a bit of wood filler. This is just ultra cheap wood filler and a bit of PVA glue mixed in with it. I'm just sort of smoothing off the surfaces, filling in those cracks, making sure there's just something that's covering it over. Because I'm going to spray paint this, or certainly undercoat the spray paint. But also, it gives a much more smooth surface, a stronger surface as well. It does add a bit of weight, but only very, very minor amount of weight. So it's just a nice surface that is a bit thicker, a bit more durable, less likely to be sort of chipped away at, basically. I realised I've missed a window there. So before you put the filler on and fill in those gaps, it's worth putting all your chimneys and your things in place. So I just kind of scattered them around the place. I didn't really know what kind of layout this should have, but I just kind of stuck them in place, and they seemed like it worked in the end. So and as you can see there, I struggled a little bit because the chimney I put on some wood filler first, so just covering it with a bit of glue and trying again and things like that, scraping away a bit of the putty, but it actually really sticks quite well. You'll see later on, once I finish the whole project, that the chimneys and everything, it looks really good, just with wood glue. I don't know what other way you would glue it, to be honest. I tried and thought of PVA and other things, but I think a hot glue gun is probably the best way. I'm sure you could get away with some all-purpose glue. I know I used to have something from Boss Stick, the glue that they make, the Pritt sticks. The kind of all-purpose glue that works, that doesn't melt away plastic and things like that. But anyway, you can see the process of filling with wood filler is a bit of a laborious one, but it really works. And here you can see here, just I'm doing the front there, that you actually use the grass right up to the doors, basically. So I kind of tried to make the sides of the entrance hill not too steep and precipitous, but it's something that I'm, to be honest, even to this day, even once I finished it, I'm not particularly happy with in terms of the steepness of the hill. But it looks good once it's done, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. Here I just use again more wood filler. This is to create a little veg patch in the front garden. So just put a load of putty on and scored some lines in it for furrows in the patch. It's really simple stuff. But as you see later on, you fill it with a bit of veggies, and it looks absolutely fantastic. Perfect for a Hobbit or Sam or someone to be working at. So there you go. You can see lots of little features I started to think about already. Your path and so on. But it's not going to be bag end and have a massive tree. I did think about doing a big tree, but realised that it looks massive. I mean, it's too big as it is. I think I probably should have done it a bit smaller, but I fancied a massive terrain piece, and I know you can get tiny little hobbit holes and so on around the place. So anyway, there you go. So I skipped a few stages there, just a little bit, because basically I'd finished the wood putty, I dried it, and then I spray painted it with green, the Death World Forest Green spray can from Games Workshop. So that's just a nice spray paint all over, and it's basically just so that when I put the glue on and put the grass on, it's got a sort of gap underneath. I also mixed with some kids poster paint, just mixed up some dark brown rather than using scorched brown or something else. I just put a nice layer of that on. You could just spray paint it brown. It didn't particularly give a great coverage, so maybe it is worth using a GW paint or something that's better at painting over the resin. But it worked well enough for me. Here you can see, just with some balsa wood and some little bits of wooden dowel, I'm making myself a little bench. So I just cut out a sheet of balsa wood, only about 2 centimetres long, I think it is. And then with some super glue and some little sticks, I started building myself a bench. It's pretty simple. You can see these stages, you just stop and start, and if you fancy following along yourself. But actually it was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I just super glued everything, and although it stuck to my finger once or twice, it actually worked out quite well, and I think it looks kind of cute. cute and adorable. There you go. Yeah, you can see it, just to have a bit of a zoom in there. But anyway, so just these little features make a big difference. Now we're already starting to think about the next stage of the process. So the bit that the bench is on that I've painted brown already, that is going to be a little garden bit. And I'm basically going to make a border of flowers and grass and things like that. So it's going to be a little lawn that the bench is sat on. And what I'm doing here, you can see these are just normal pins, sort of. I don't know whether they've got a specific name, but I think they're something to do with dress pins or something like that. Anyway, these are the pins you can get in little boxes for sewing kits. And they've got these little pin heads on the top that are perfect for flowers, basically. So I just sort of stick a few of these in a little batch and stick them through the foam core itself, and then I just get on with it and blob a load of PVA glue on them, and that'll hold them in place. And then once that brown paint's dried and the PVA glue is dried, this, I think it was overnight now, I just started dry brushing. This is using a acrylic paint I've got that I dug out of the cupboard called Cafe, but you can use any kind of paint really. It's just Graveyard Earth, something like that. Then with some blue paint, I painted some of these grass tufts I have. You can get flower tufts, but I found I'm not going to use flowery, colourful tufts that often. So I thought, well, actually, it's probably best just to paint some of these green ones. I've got some yellow ones that I used in the Rohan Riders army that I did. And then I just sort of sprinkled a bit of green flock. It's a little sort of lumpy flock, a bit of red lichen, a bit of yellow lichen, and then I'm going to paint the tips of the pinheads as well in blue and green and things like that. Just basically just a big variety of stuff in that border makes it look really, really nice and full. And you can see already, even just adding those blue and red dots adds a lot of colour and vibrancy to that. I did forget to paint the pinheads, the pins themselves rather than the pinheads, so worth painting the pins before you get the rest of the border. I don't know, they're still metal now even. Then just, a bit of grass, bit of flock. It looks normal, actually, flock. It's just a kind of standard stuff. But this is an important one, worth noting. When you're doing any kind of farmland, don't do your furrows, but don't put the plants in the bottom of the furrow. Put them on the top. It's the way it allows the way I'm from Lincolnshire, farming background. I'm used to looking out over cabbage fields. They always do the furrows. They plant the veg onto the furrows themselves onto the top. It's basically so the roots kind of spread out a bit. Anyway, so they look really good once they're done. And you can see it's already developing to a nice little front. Using Bestial Brown, the old paint, I start working on the tiles because there's sort of bricks and there's tiles, or kind of, I guess it's like, I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, it's sort of tiling, a terracotta style tiles, I think, certainly for the window ledges. So I paint all that in Bestial Brown. Same with the tiles on the little roofs on the top of the windows, as you can see here. But I also did the brickwork in orange. This kind of orangey brown. You'll see when I sort of stop fanning around, spinning the camera around wildly. You'll see that I just do everything. Dry brush it all orange. I keep calling it orange. It's because it's an orange brown, isn't it? I keep just dry brushing everything with this Bestial Brown colour. I really like Bestial Brown. I think it's XV88 or something in the new GW paints, but go to Dakar paint conversion chart and you'll be able to get a rough guide to what I've used. But there you go, just sort of giving a nice layer of them, and then I did the same with the actual bricks there. I just kind of painted them all, leaving a bit of a gap between the sort of recesses for the mortar between the brick paths, but just a nice little orangey colour. Then with some blue, I just started on the windows. So this is enchanted blue, bright blue. You can use any old blue, of course. But I didn't really know what to do for the windows because really you'd actually be able to see inside them, whatever's inside that hobbit hole. But I mean, that's just far too much detail. So I start with blue and I'm eventually going to highlight it up. Now we're getting to the stage where I'm starting to glue grass on. So I did this in patches. I didn't want it all to look exactly the same. So I just chose a few different bits of grass flock that I had. So I had some patches of sort of a bucket of stuff that had fallen off some trees that are model railway trees. So that's the sort of green stuff that you can see on the left there. Also some sort of mixture of flocks as well, and I also glued some clumps of foliage as well, again from railway modelling things. I think it's called, I can't remember, this something Scenics. Anyway, they're really good. I'll put the full thing in the comments once I get around to it. But then I start flocking and just kind of giving a mix. I think the important thing here is to not do one kind of flock, but to just do in patches and just keep giving it a shake, knocking it out, mixing it again. I think having it too uniform will really ruin it. You can see I've changed outfit, can't you, actually, if you'd noticed. Earlier I was wearing a t-shirt, now I'm wearing a shirt. Isn't this fantastic? So you can see this is clearly a couple of days after the original one, after I painted. So I've got all this flock, and you can see my elbows in the way all the time, and the newspaper getting covered. But it's kind of important to do this. I still had to hoover up a lot after this, because this flock just gets everywhere. But just a nice... Not too watery, but a little water in your PVA glue, and then just keep dumping on piles of flock. So I've got some dark green flock and some light green flock, and a mixture of other bits as well. So I've got some static grass as well, and so yeah, just slowly building up those layers. And you can see already that the differentiation between the sort of front half of that the hill there and the sort of bit just behind the chimney. Of course, I've blocked away now, but it's worth noticing these sort of patches, the way it sort of builds up. It actually makes a massive difference to how it looks, having different shades of grass, and it just makes it stand out and looks less boring. So there you go. As you can see there, this is pretty much completely covered in grass. So I'll just slow it down and have a proper look around everything as it's all dried. And this is after a day. Give it a good day to dry. Knock it off a couple of times. Give it a good tap. And then you've got a lovely hill, and you can see it's really coming to life already. So now this is onto the kind of actual painting of everything. So we've got bestial brown and red gore. So a nice sort of terracotta-y red and bestial brown. Mix them together, and I just layer on all of the terracotta-y tile things there. So kind of not highlighting it or dry brushing it really, but just kind of painting along in lines that, as you can see, they're sort of following the gradient. So it leaves the recesses as the tiles kind of fold over each other, so they've got shades in between there. But I like the red there. Also, we've got a little bit of orange, I think that is. It's squig orange, and squig orange is it's a kind of reddy orange, actually. It's a bit of an unusual colour. I wouldn't ever want to use it for orange, but it actually looks really good for this kind of reddish kind of light orangey highlight to a terracotta. So you can see there I'm painting on the highlights already on those windows. Actually, just kind of dry brushing and edging it, using the edge of your brush a lot, and just highlighting it just gently, carefully. And this is, you can see I can doing the chimneys and the terracotta tiles on the windows there, but I'm not actually doing the brickwork. I'm going to come back to that in a bit with a different colour. But you can see there I'm kind of highlighting it, following the gradient, and really catching the edges of the window. So you can see here I just sort of edge it ever so slightly. Now with vermin brown and bestial brown, I use that for the bricks. So this is these are still old paints, but these are more orangey browns. So rather than the red tone on the bricks, you can see already the difference, the contrast between the window ledge there and the door bricks. Just kind of edging them as just catching the edges. You can see how I'm dry brushing around the edges, and it's just a subtle dry brush, using quite a big brush actually. Not a detail brush, it's a standard brush, but it's still got a point on, so it's worth doing there. Same with the bricks here, just painting them in completely, basically, and leaving gaps in the recesses. This is blazing orange this time, blazing orange and vermin brown, so that's just adding a bit more orange to the highlight here for the bricks here, as you see around the door and around the windows as well, and the bricks underneath the windowsill as well, which I'll come back to later, but also on the chimney stacks. They're the main bits where you get orange, so just don't be afraid of just lathering it on there, just kind of building up here. And look, an orange in the background, hey, look at that. I'll want that for a snack in a bit. So I keep just dry brushing these, and you can see already, although it's massively out of focus, you can see the the way it's coming together just so nicely. And with this orange colour, this sort of brighter orange, I just highlighted the corners of those bricks on the pavement. So if you want to do that. This is just a blue highlight in the window. I think it's snakebite leather. No, not snakebite leather, Space Wolves Grey. And then this is the hardest bit. I wanted the windows to stand out and wanted it to look like they've been really sort of taken care of by the Hobbity owners. And to do that, I just highlighted the window frames in white as kind of a traditional wooden English window style is just white painted windows. So I spent a lot of effort sort of making it look as neat as I possibly could. You can see sort of around the edges I'm touching up a lot of with graveyard earth brown to pick out these details again. With this is chestnut wash. You can use any kind of Raglan Flesh Shade wash, the glossy one. It's glossy, just basically make it look like it's had a bit of a varnish, so that it's weathered and worn, but it's been revarnished. Again, hobbits look after their stuff, so I can imagine them having a good polish and revarnishing everything. So they're just layering on a nice shiny layer over all of the wood there. So the highlights will still be showing through, but you've got that shine, that extra shine there, which looks really good. And I did catch the gold on the handle there, so I just sort of rubbed it off again. But you can see there it's nice gold. This is a bit I missed. I was annoyed about this. This is kind of it's like a white, creamy kind of I can't remember what it's called, but it's so I was a bit annoyed about this because I just missed that little bit, and just to making it, highlighting it, bringing it to white, just to make it stand out a bit like your sort of Tudor houses of old, where they had the big wooden beams and the white bits in between. I really don't know what it's called, but anyway, there you go. That is it. So that is my Hobbit Hill, the Hobbit house, the Hobbit Hole. It's come together really nicely, actually, I think, and just having a look through all of these final shots with the hobbits in place, I think it looks really good. I'm really proud of it, actually. In particular, just the way the flower bed comes together, it just makes it look like a proper Hobbit hole, even with the sort of guys on the top there, and the windows, the sort of little reflections in the window look pretty cool. The one thing I wish I'd done was make the base itself a little neater, because you can see the edges, it just looks a bit crap, some of the edges on the base, but actually really proud of it. I think it looks really cool, and your edges on the chimneys and everything like that. So there you go. I know this has been a kind of a rush through guide, and it's not been a showing you every step-by-step process and giving you in detail what I did, but I hope that you at least get an idea of how I put things together. And of course, as ever, I'll be very happy to answer any questions you put in the comments below. So do fire away with your comments and questions. I'd love to hear from you about what you think of this wonderful Hobbit Hole and the Forgeworld kit. I think you'll probably really enjoy, you'll get a kick out of making your Hobbit Hole. I certainly did. So thanks very much for watching another Battle Games in Middle Earth video.